Welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to make Moonrise kind of effect. So this is very simple, not too complicated, but it contains a lot of different elements. First we have like moon, then we have some fluid, then foam, and some mist, or you can say smoke. So for this let's start it. So let me just create first geometry. We call this moon. It's a simple sphere with some large radius. So for this I am using sphere as a polygon and using frequency almost 10 and scale is 10 also. So I am making this quite big. Then let me just add UV texture node so that when we apply moon texture on it, it has some proper texturing. So if you look texturing, it is like this, and we want something like spherical kind of mapping. So you can go here UV texture and change texture type to polar, so it will have like something like this. Okay, now we need to animate our moon. So for this I am using another transform node, and in transform node I am using values, which is I think I used from frame 15, and translate is -15. It was from bottom to up, and I think I have next key which is at around something like I think 200 will be enough, and its value is 30. So right. So now we have animated this animation. Now if you see, you can like start moving like this. If you want to change its animation type or anything, go to curve section and it will change. So if you press shift left click, it will show the curve, and you can always change the curve. So if you want to like easily settle on the end frame, you can just select this key and you can just linearize this thing so that it will like only happen this. Or if you want like curve, you can do curve also. It's up to you however you want to stop your animation, however you like. So this is like simple animation. Now it will easily settle. Okay, next we are going to use null object to out this. Okay, so this is enough for moon, and let me save this because this is going to be very heavy file. My original file is very heavy and it contains very detailed, not medium detail, but very high particle count. So it took around more than 7 to 8 days to simulate and render. For simulation it took almost like 5 to 6 days and almost 30 hours for render. So it will take time. So this is not, and quick work. So next we need our fluid container. So for this I'm using flip tank. So we'll go to fluid and let's just use flip tank, and it's just here. And in flip tank I think I have used very simple values, and I think I used very large ocean surface, so I think I use 30 by 30 by 30, almost like this. And let me center this, and I'm going to use little bit up so that it doesn't intersect in initial frames. And after that I didn't change anything else. And come to, we don't need this one, and let's go to rope network. And in here I think I've used some settings. So for first, let me just lower these values because this is too high and we don't have that much time to like wait and simulate. So for this I'm using very low number. We will change this when we come. Then we need some changes in the flip solver, and in flip solver I think I have used 2 and 5 in my final settings, but just we use 2 by 2 is enough. Then in narrow band I have lowered this number to 1 to reduce the particle count. Then in volume I used solver, and I used OpenCL to speed up my simulation. But if you want to do if you don't have any powerful GPU, then don't use this, otherwise it will not work properly and maybe crashed. File may be crashed. So this is basic settings. Then in particle I think I used surface source sampling. I think I used 4, and separation I didn't use, droplet I didn't use. You can choose these droplets to like further delete some single particles, but I think in my case I didn't use that. And for vorticity I used this, and I think I behaved splashy kernel, this one, and you can reduce force and other settings also. I think this is my basic settings. Next we need to add this moon to the solver so that it can simulate. So go to collision, we start select, and I think it came here. And this is doesn't have to be very high, just use deforming geometry, and in deforming geometry I used collision. I think I used by size, I think I used 0.05. I think 0.05 is enough. And bullet data I used convex. Yes, I think I didn't have changed anything else. This is default. These are the like some basic settings that I have used. Okay, so Control S, and let me simulate this to see how it's coming. Okay, now you can see it is coming up, but it doesn't look very good because it looks like all particles coming up at the same time. So for this I used some extra velocities to break this specific shape. It doesn't look like this. So for this I am going to create a velocity field or a velocity custom velocity you can use in here. So for this I am just create a geometry, name this velocity. You can name whatever you want. Then in here I used simple sphere, and same is of same size of as, and something like this. And let me just take another transform, or we don't need that. Then we need to convert this to point, so let me just use point from volume, and we don't need too much high points. I'm just using just 0.5, very low, and just increase jitter scale so it has some random. Then in here I used point velocity, and in point velocity I used curl noise, this one. So settings I have used, which is 3, strength of the particles, then some swirl size of this, and I think this is enough, and I don't use any other particles or any other values. Then we need to rasterize this value because fluid takes vector values of these. So let me just rasterize. And in here I think I used attribute V. V is for velocity, and voxel size I used not very big, and that's it. That's the value that I have used. You can normalize this so that it doesn't go beyond some values. Then just add null object, and this is out. And we don't need to display this geometry. This is just for velocity purpose. Come to this fluid node and add a volume source, and in volume source just call this your velocity geometry here, which is velocity out, and just create a velocity field, which is like create one here, and this is vector, which is V. Target field is velocity well, and we don't need anything else. Operation, we want to pull the velocities from there, and I think that's enough. Okay, now we need to connect this to this last section. So if we look again, always save file before simulating. Okay, now you can see it has broken this shape. See, it's moving around only in this region. You can animate that sphere also to like grow from center to outward. And I'm using very low setting, that's why it's not coming in very detail. But if you see your fluid, or sorry, decrease this setting, you will get much more detailed result. I think at this I used another field, which is I think simple pop drag. Drag to just slower these values. So I use very small amount, 0.0, and in gravity and everything is same. So just simulate this at higher settings and save its cache. So I just go for one. I think in my simulation I use 0.01. So for that I am not going to use that much high settings. So let's simulate this for a couple of frames. And you can see it has much more details. So to cache this out, go to this flip fluid settings, and in here just go to this compressed this node and choose your cache. So for this I think I am going to choose my previous simulated cache, which I used in my final output, so that you get much detailed results. So let me, if you want to save this, just add this address or go to your folders, save here, and let me load my cache which I have used. So I think I have used this one. This is my compressed cache. So if I load this, see, now you can see it has some showing like this, but it's not actually this. If I go to here in my surface preview section, and if I go and just use only particles, you can see my result. This is very detailed particle. See, if I go some forward, see, you get very detailed, and if I go further, see, you get this kind of detailed particle fluid. So always consider that it contains, my original simulation contains almost 16 million particle count. 16 million particle count, almost more than 16.5 million particle count. So always decrease point separation depending upon your system, otherwise it will not simulate or it will take time to simulate. So just come here. After that, when you simulated this, save this, and next we need to create foam particles. So for foam particles, just go to here, first frame again, particles, and here it is white particle. Select this fluid, or in my case let me select this and press enter. It will create your white water source and other nodes. In here let's go to white water source, and if I look in my source here, select, you can visualize your source. And if I go to some other further where some velocity and other things are happening, you can check how the particles are emitting. So if I be careful with this, because it takes time, otherwise you will be waiting for a very long time to show these results. Okay. Now you can see here, if I hide other objects, you can see these are like your sources of particles. So it is coming from curvature, acceleration, vorticity, and you don't want from curvature. You can choose that, but curvature is like your range when particles are moving in curl direction. So in my original scenario I used only vorticity and velocity and nothing else. Okay, now you can see there's some this one, and you can always adjust this. And vorticity, I will lower this to almost like 5. See, that has more. So these are the like basic settings that I have used. And if I go to my white water simulation, so at least disable my this cache, because this is too much, very much heavy, and I don't want to change, or I don't want to load that my particles. Okay, so use bypass this, or you can keep as it is, because it will not save this. And come to white water. In here again further, you can go to white water solver. Again it has some these settings. So in my scenario I used the values which are, I think I have used this to be 0.03, and I think voxel size I have used 0.05 to generate more particles, and I think I have used add state attributes to separate all the different particles like foam, spray and this. And in my velocity multiplier I lowered this value like 0.2. Lifespan I used 1, and in advanced section I have decreased bubble to 0, spray to 0. If you want you can increase these values. Spray is like mist kind of particles, or foam is foam particle, bubble we don't need bubble. If you want you can go this to and add 1 or 2. This is like multiplier, overall multiplier on this slide. If this is 0, 0, it will not generate bubble and spray particles, it will generate only foam particles.
then go to limit, and in here I think I have used some other settings. I've used, I think in foam I used erosion. It will like delete out some foam particles. Then in advanced again I used the same. So these are my final settings, and next we need our moon to interact with these foam particles. So for moon, let me just go here again, or you can just copy from here, it's up to you. Copy this and go to my folder. Okay, and you can merge here, and I think I have also changed some settings also. I have used pop drag here also. It is on this third to same value which is I used in that. So if I simulate this, please check how it's coming. Okay, now you can see it's generating foam particles. So for this, let me just use my foam particle which I have simulated. Again, you come to import section and just display here, and let me just call my cache. You can always save here. Always save this because it will take much longer time. So if I use my foam particles, you can see it's like this. It's the same settings, and you can see in my scenario I did around 2 million or 5 million depending upon where you, in which frame you are looking. See, in some cases it's too high, in some cases too low. And here these are like, if you want to render this as a volume, you can use this volume. But I never use volume because it takes too much time, so I mostly used as a particle. For this I used a simple attribute triangle. Here and render from here, and I just use a simple expression. Okay, so it will render as a point at this separation. You can increase or decrease this separation depending upon how your foam is coming. Okay, now we have seen this foam. Next, let's go to smoke section and just create smoke. So for smoke, we just create another geometry, smoke or mist, whatever you want to call. In here, let me just disable all this because they are taking too much time. So just call this again file cache. Call my cache, which is foam cache. I am going to call. I am using that foam. This one. Okay, and let me create again source, which is pyro source. So pyro source. And in here, let me just change this to smoke, and I think everything is okay. And I used particle scale to 1,
I think I didn't use temperature. Then just rasterize this so that it can be used in our smoke. So in here I used density, and everything is same, and I used some velocity blur, and shutter I used it to blur these velocities and normalize this. You are not able to see here. Then if I go here, I think we need to lower this particle separation to properly see these. Okay, so let's just add another attribute, noise, and on this density attribute too, so that it can animate this. So we will do density. Okay, now you can see it has some values, and in my case I used animated alligator, and in here I used, I think, the amplitude of 5 by 5 by 5, and fractal I used almost 6, and roughness a little lower, something like this. Then just use null object. Okay, now we need to create smoke simulation. For that we need loop network. Yes, and we connect this to second display here, and first. Now we need to create these nodes. So for this we need smoke solver. You can use smoke or pyro, whatever you want. Then we need smoke object. Then in smoke object you need to define your region, and in my case I used very big region, which is 50 by 50 by 50, and this is 13, or the size of this container, fluid container. And I have closed this on negative y boundaries. So it doesn't go below that. Then we need gas resize. Dynamic. Second. And in here I used clamp to around maybe 5 by 5 by 5. Okay, and after that we need our source, which is volume source. So volume source,
and in here go to second context, and we need like initialize these. So okay, we need some density. This is like density, and everything is okay. So it is like this, and if we simulate this, okay, now you can see it has some volume coming. For this, let me just add some couple of variables here. First we need like gravity, and gravity I used very small values. It is -1, and we used our moon object, this one, and we need merge, we always static solver should be your first, otherwise it doesn't interact. Then we need some other values or some velocity fields to control our smoke. So for this, first we need to use turbulence, which is gas turbulence, and I'm going to couple of more fields. So for this I'm going to use gas turbulence, and let's use merge. Select this, and need to put this in the third slot, which is for velocity. In gas turbulence, I have changed some values, which is like scale, I have changed to 2, swirl size 5, and everything is same. Then I have used gas dissipate, and in here I used again density field to control this, and subtraction rate I used 0.5 so that it will kill all the forces, and I used gas wind to emulate some wind effect, and I think I used almost default. I think I have used, these are some values that I have used, and if you simulate or want to change some settings here, you can go and change some settings in smoke solver also. So I think in simulation I have decreased temperature diffusion, I have decreased cooling, buoyancy lift I decreased to 0.1, and in advance I change this to increase this basically, and I'm going to use OpenCL so that it can simulate fast. Okay, so let's again, and we just simulate this, or let's look how it does look. Okay, our setting is low, so it's not coming very detailed. So in my final settings, I think I have used the value which is
around 0.08, so that it will give you some higher results. So let's disable this and let's import this data. So for this I'm going to use again .io. And in here just use doc node, which is this one, and sorry, this one, and object is our smoke object, which is, I go to smoke, so I think this one, smoke object, and in here we said use smoke, you will get everything. Whichever you don't need, just remove this so that it doesn't take too much of information. And after that, simulate this, save to this file. So let me just load my cache. So again, in my case I have used, I think, this one. In my case, if you look, it has something like this. It has this icon. If you are not unable to see this, just use volume visualize so that you can visualize this. Okay, and in density field just use density, and you can always increase the density to look here. Okay, this is just for visual purpose. We are going to render from here. Okay, so we have our, so let me just go to something which I think I have 66. So I have like this smoke, and if I go to our, this one, we have our foam. Then in fluid, if I load again my compressed, this one node, and my mesh here, I'm not changing anything here, it's just default. You get your mesh. And in region I used open boundaries so that it doesn't create these meshes. And after that, so I just enable this, you get your like all three elements. Now it's part to generate your, which is materials. So I think I used just create your materials. So let me create 1, 2, 3 materials for ocean, foam and moon. Ocean, foam. Let me just disable this foam, sorry, smoke for a couple of
Now just add these materials. Just use moon, and for ocean, use ocean. For foam, add foam. Okay. I think I'm not going to render or set up. Really, just let me show you what I used, or because it will take time. And just create render node for V-Ray. Okay, I think it has created. So the settings. And don't save this. Okay, option lighting default. Okay, control this, and if we look here, let me just lower my frame size, so I don't want to be that big. Okay, control this. Now you can look here. Okay. Because we don't have any lights, so it's not showing something. So for moon, I used again that V-Ray image texture, and I have this moon texture which is of this one, and I'm going to use this in a self-emission channel. And now if you look, you get your moon image. So it has some weird artifact. You can just rotate this to your something like in here. Okay, so that you get your moon. Okay. Now for your water, let me settings to we have here water, and foam, just go this for white. Now you get water and foam. Also you get water and foam. If it's not coming too much bright, you can always go to moon and increase its value. And for smoke, if I go enable my smoke, it has some values here. So for this we need to use volume material, which is V-Ray volume, and we don't want fire. Just apply this to your smoke. You get your volume. So if I go, I think around something 190 frame, it will have some more smoke and other values, so it will look much better. So this is almost like my final setup for this. I have used some reflection map and all that to get my final results, but this is almost like and I have extended this mesh to show all around my smoke or all around the ocean. You can always extend this, it's not a big deal. See, so you can add light and other things to make it much more beautiful. So in my fluid, if you want to extend this, you go to this section, this is particle fluid, and in here just use this flatten geometry. Okay. And go to something like this. You have your like mesh and add bounds and just go to extrude. So now you can extend this to however distance you want. So if you want like big distance, you can go for big distance. It will have your big area. Now if I place my camera and line this, you get somewhat what I have in my final scenes. You can always adjust these values. It has some other settings also. So I think you have get the idea how to create this kind of look. So in my final settings I have some other values also, so you can create it. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. We will see you in next time. Goodbye.